Welcome to the Simply Be Found Huddle. You've got Rob and Nick as our guests today. Welcome, Nick. Our whole entire huddle is about being able to gain more sales, get your business more eyeballs, and be able to help your business be able to grow. I appreciate you coming on, Nick, today. Can you tell everybody about you, what you have going on, and all the stuff that we were kind of talking about inside of the green room?
Yeah, man, thanks for having me, Rob. It's great to be here, and it's a privilege. So, I I'm a small business owner, a solopreneur. I do financial planning and investments and kind of small business CFO consulting, based out of Atlanta area, but I work with clients really across the country. And it's been an interesting journey getting here. From growing up a small business, and then my dad's company was acquired, so we went corporate for a little while, and making a career change while raising a family. So that's kind of the phase that I'm in right now.
Well, that's awesome. So, when you're doing all the different stuff that you do, so if I'm picturing correctly, you help with their personal finance and growth and all that stuff for business owners. Plus, you can come in as the CFO. Am I hearing you right on that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what a client needs, but I spent about 10 years doing small business financial analytics and planning and dashboarding and just overall operations efficiency monitoring, stuff like that. So like I'm pretty good at being able to come into a small business and kind of evaluate how it's doing from a financial standpoint, and then provide maybe some operations strategy consulting. But the goal is a financial plan and strategy for the owner. So many owners, like, they're accidental business owners, they're really good operators, they're really good service providers, but like, man, it's such a struggle to de-risk your personal portfolio from being super concentrated in your business, to have any sort of a strategy for like, hey, I made a lot of money this year, I'm going to get clobbered in taxes, what do I do? Or like, hey, I'm making a lot of money in my business generally, and I don't really know what to do with it. So you just kind of lifestyle inflate, and then you're trapped in your business because now you're enjoying all the profits and you can't actually exit without a huge reduction in your lifestyle. So yeah, it's a multifaceted kind of service offering that I'm providing at the moment.
I mean, there's a lot of different aspects that I've seen over the finance world and looking at businesses and analyzing as much business as I have when I did venture capital and all that stuff. But I mean, being able to look at the backside, I mean, you have a variety of different businesses out there. Either you're going to be the guy who is organized, he has his business credit, his business accounts, knew how to settle that up. But you might have the guy that, or the gal, whoever, the business owner that didn't do all of that. Technically, they're using it like a personal account, or it is a personal account, and they have no idea how to even set any of that business side up. Do you
Oh
work
my
with both
goodness.
ends and help the guy who has part of that, and also the guy that's really, or the business owner that's really super just not doing anything right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would love to see more people for their own sake in the former category. I don't know where you find those folks. I haven't found any of them yet, but that's exactly where I want to help them get, right? It's, a lot of people use their business like a personal expense account. Then when it comes tax season, they're having to, take personal, like payouts or personal guarantee payments for all of the personal stuff. Their CPA is guessing for half of it, and so it's very inefficient. It costs them probably more in taxes than they realize because they're missing true deductions and trying to claim stuff that's not a real deduction. And then it's just messy, and it's very unclear and muddy how their business is actually doing. Because if you've mingled in all this other stuff that's not actually related to the business, now you have no idea how profitable you are. Uh, and you have no idea how much more efficient you could be, because you're just spending money. This is so common. You're spending money on things you forgot you're actually paying for, subscriptions you didn't know you still had, personal stuff, business stuff that you don't really need. So yeah, that's probably the biggest mistake I see. I don't want to call it a mistake, but just the biggest weight that I see most business owners like carrying around they're on their backs, is a lack of clear definition between personal, business, and then a true picture of how both of those kind of worlds are really operating independent of each other.
Well, I used to say the comment that we used to have on our website where we've been trying to figure out where we kind of are for a company and all the stuff for our own branding and looking at the data side, which is a very interesting piece. But one thing I used to say inside of some world market is we help you get more money in your bank account. Now, I had a guy argue this once. He goes, okay, he goes, yep, I see the money coming in, but it's not staying there. So you're not really getting any more money in my bank account. And I said, well, where's it going? He goes, well, my wife is spending it just as fast as it comes in. I said, well, that sounds like a personal problem. We did our part. And we both laughed about it. But I was like, I'm not going to say that anymore because someone might really take that wrong. I can't really help you get it there. I can help you be able to get people in front of you for a higher opportunity to get it. But you keeping it there is a hard part. I've also had mentors say, the hardest thing about money is it's easy to make money, but it's a lot harder to keep money.
Sure.
And I've talked to multi-millionaires, almost billionaires on that topic. And they're like, well, we've lost it 2, 3, 4 times. And it's harder to keep it than it is to, it's easier to keep it it's easier to make it than it is to keep it. Sure. And I think having those right plans and knowing what you're doing and knowing where you stand is a very important piece inside of business.
Okay, so give me your top reason or two that you think it's easy to lose the money. What are the top two a couple things you see that money always just disappears into?
There's a few things I've seen. So I mean, if you're making a lot of money, you're spending, all of a sudden you start spending. Most business owners start spending the money.
Okay. So like lifestyle inflation?
Like they're always going to have it. And then when the hard stuff hits, they can't be able to keep up with it. So they kept up with the Joneses in a lot of those cases, started spending as fast as came in. They never saved anything.
Okay.
I would say that's probably the number one reason why most businesses fail that start and had a good success. And then all of a sudden they're gone. Something happened. Because inside of the world of business, you have to have money you have to have a plan and be able to have the right things in place when something bad happens. I mean, look at COVID. You never know when something's going to hit. The economics that we're in right now. If you didn't plan properly for it, you're going to be screwed.
Man, and the way you do anything is the way you do everything. So if you don't have a good emergency fund inside your business, you probably don't have one for your personal life either. And if you don't have any emergency fund in either place, now you're even more dangerous or exposed to even more danger because now you have an inflated lifestyle that's contingent on everything continuing to go perfectly.
And have you ever seen a business go perfect?
So no, the second thing I see a lot though, in addition to lifestyle inflation, is the classic business reinvestment. Like, we're just going to take this and we just reinvest profits. And it's like, hold on a second. I think it was it Mike Michalowicz that wrote Profit First who said,
yes,
reinvested. I know it was him who wrote, I think it was him who said, reinvested profits is just a really fancy way of saying I spent all the money. So something like that.
I forget who wrote the book Profit First.
It was Mike. Yeah. Mike Michalowicz.
I was going to say, didn't he write the same book? Or write that book as well. But you have to be able, I mean, there's that whole piece that's there that is kind of twisted. And I mean, there's a lot of good ideas that come from a lot of those books. But you have to, I mean, as an entrepreneur, you're taking risks every single day. I don't do a ton of gambling. I do a little bit here and there, and I'll take what I want to lose, and I look at it that way. My family my father was a major, had gambling habits, and so did his parents, and so on and so forth. So I have that piece there. But someone asked me when we were in Vegas once, you're not like hot to trot to get to, go gamble. And I said, I'm not. I said, I gamble every day. I gamble with my business and I take risks and I'm in control of what I get instead of the house being in control. And I mean, every entrepreneur has that whole entire piece. It's why they have a place in Vegas that does nothing but data collection on people that come visit a place. It's not open to the public. It's mocked up as a casino, everything from the hotel all the way down. And they collect data on everybody that comes into that place because they're looking at how they're going to spend their money. Well, I mean, there's corporations that are spending money on this data that's inside of this whole piece. I've got a podcast all about that. But you have to understand that you're taking risks every single day, but it's not the big stuff that's going to hurt you. It's not the big charges that are going to hurt you. It's all the small stuff that adds up and it's going to cost more inside of your business, in my opinion.
Yeah. And, I think that the cost or just expense inflation, out of control expenses in your business is one of the easiest areas to improve your profits. Most of the time, if you give a careful combing through of your expenses, you can find 10 to 15% right off the top you can cut. And that's
Mhm.
just profit right back into your pocket. I always advise cutting too deep when you're cutting costs, when you're cutting your expenses, because you can always add it back. But if you make your first pass and it doesn't hurt a little bit, you probably didn't cut enough.
Well, you have to understand the stuff that's hurting you and the stuff that is this the gravy on top and the stuff that's bringing you the most business. I
Sure.
think a lot of business owners don't know where to start for that. I'm seeing a lot of that right now in the world that we're in for economics. People are looking at ads and they're like, I'm spending all this money in ads, but I'm not getting the returns. That's why I
Okay. And
really
you're
believe.
being in marketing. I mean, that's like people looking right at you, right? Like, hey, Rob, come on, man. What's going on?
Well, and the biggest thing we get is, how are you any different? I said, well, we're organic. So I look at the whole entire marketing aspect, I look at as a marketing tree. If you've watched any of our podcasts before, you've heard me talk about this. I talk about almost on every single podcast. But your marketing is to where you have your citations, you have all of your directories, everything that you've been in. That's your root base. That's going to be our listings engine for what we sell. That's where we work with 1,000 different networks. It's making sure that you are everywhere somebody might search for you. And if you don't have that set up, you need that for your business. Your next part is going to be that tree trunk. That's your website. That's where all of your data of what you are, that's your business card. That's your digital part that you control inside of the internet and inside of your marketing. Then you have branches from there. Blogging would be a branch, social media. You have all these different pieces up inside of the tree of that you can be doing your paid ads, email marketing, cold marketing. Now, if you're a brand new business, you are just getting all these pieces done. But everybody wants to focus on things up inside of the branch and not focus on what's going to be able to make it to where they can, no matter what's happening in the world, no matter what algorithm update happens, no matter all those spaces, they're going to be protected along the way. So that's what makes us different inside of that piece. So, but if you're just doing parts of up here inside of the branch and you're not taking care of your entire ecosystem, just like your finances, it'll come down and it'll crumble, because then things will get weak and you'll get a tree that starts to tip over. If you can't catch it before it falls down, you're going to be in trouble. And it takes a good root base and it takes a good trunk to be able to make your business work.
So in that metaphor, the root base would be like the connections and the industry memberships and the places where you could be known, right?
So that'd be like, for example, it might be Google Business Profile, or
Got it.
just having your basic information on there. It could be your Yelp profile. It could be your Apple Business Connect profile. It could be all those different pieces that are in there. Now, some of those kind of branch up inside of being inside of your branches, like voice search would be one of those big pieces. Your AI search, that's a branch of how you're handling it, but it's taking nutrients from inside of that root base. Kind of like
Got
it
it.
takes money to be able to start a business and be able to do it. You have to have clients. What's the biggest way to be able to save your business inside of an economic downturn? Well, it's getting more eyeballs on your business and it's getting more sales, because if the more sales you have, the more money you have coming in, and that creates your survival. But you have to be able to know what to do with that money. And I think that's where the finance world really kicks in.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned earlier you have to know what's hurting you and or the way you said it was you have to know what's the gravy on top and what's really making you money. That is so easy to say. So hard to
Practicing
do.
it is a whole nother world. I mean, I
So
blow that one up all the time.
yeah, I mean, how do you begin going through and kind of culling out the gravy, so to speak? What do you look for?
When I'm looking for the gravy, so Joe, by looking at all of the businesses I've ever looked at from a finance level, and that there's a few thousand I've looked at for different things of buying and selling. When I look at that, I look at for things that aren't getting returns. Well, you have being a data science person, I can look at that and go, okay, let's look at the data. Now with AI, I could really comb through a business, real fast as far as what they're spending to be able to tell you if it's getting results or not. And a lot of it is going through and have to know what it is. And I think that's where a lot
Yeah.
of businesses fail, is because we're terrified to cut something because we don't really know what it's doing, and we don't have enough data, and we don't have enough knowledge about what we've been sold inside of there to know to be able to cut it and what not to cut. So then we have that fear factor of, I'm not sure. So I guess my question back to you, Nick, is you're pretty new in getting your whole company up and started, right?
Yeah.
So as a finance person, what did you find most important when you started your business? Was it how much money you had to start the business with? And what things did you go to first to be able to start growing your business?
Well, I mean, there's the areas that I was naturally skilled at, which
Okay.
would be the analytics, financial planning, tax strategies, investments, stuff like that. Then there are the business skills that I had seen enough to be able to kind of replicate, and that was some of the initial relationship building. Um, Developing standard operating procedures to just document, hey, for me to, when I come back to this in a month, because I haven't looked at it since then, what do I do? How do I forget how to, something simple, right? Keep your books, reconcile your accounts, onboard a new client, just having a little checklist for pretty much everything in the business. But where I really struggled, Rob, was in the marketing and prospecting. That's still a weak area for me because that's just
Okay.
not my natural. I don't have much experience in that. It's not really my natural skill set. And so, developing, like you were talking about, the tree with the roots, branches, leaves, and fruit, of prospecting, relationship building, turning informational content into lead magnets that draw, the right eyeballs, or really all the eyeballs, but then draw the right people from, kind of I don't know, the whole concept of just a sales funnel and a prospecting process. That was the biggest learning curve for me, I think, in the first year.
And where'd you go educate yourself on that?
A variety of places, lots of conversations, lots of podcasts, lots of just trial and error.
Binge watching some YouTubes and
Yeah,
which there's a
you
lot of
know,
people who say they're experts and really they're not.
yeah.
But yeah.
Well, there's a lot of that, and so I mean, there's just a lot of looking, listening, reading, watching. I found Alex Hormozy's books. Really enjoy
Okay.
those. I think Alex is really down to earth and has just, I mean, he's got, pretty great track record with what he's done, and really, really nice, easy to listen to,
I
and
like
super
Alex.
practical, like super applicable and, practical approach. I did hire a marketing consultant, Chris
What
Jones
was that
at
like?
Red. Well, so um, it was good. I mean, it was really good. I learned a lot. Um, it it's hard to gauge. I want to be careful here, just because with any with any marketing, the we're talking earlier, right, about people coming to you saying like, "Hey, Rob, what's going on? It's not working." So working with a marketing consultant was, I mean, it was really enjoyable. I mean, it was a great process, and I felt like I got an excellent service and deliverable for what I paid. Um, I've struggled to see like, okay, well, what's missing? Because it's still not. I'm still not where I need to be or plan to be, and just wondering like, okay, I think that was a really important part, but I think there's more that I need to add to it to, again, to build the rest of the funnel and add some extra pieces to it. So now I've got a really great trunk, but I think I need to do more in the roots and maybe tend to some of the branches.
So what was the first thing you did for marketing? Now I'm really curious.
Okay, so the first thing I did was really just friends and family. I think that's what
Okay.
everybody does. I just told my friends and family is what I'm doing. I posted on my social media pages,
So
happy little
you
post about.
created social for yourself.
Well, so I mean, I had social media pages myself, and I posted. It's so funny, Rob. I posted like this, great announcement, like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. You can schedule a call here. I'm Nick. Everybody knows me, on my social media pages, but it's like, hey, here's me, and here's what I'm doing next, and man, it was crickets. I sure thought that when
And
I posted that,
how did that feel?
it felt terrible, man. It's so disheartening.
I've never really been able to sell to friends and family. And inside of
It's
the finance world, that's probably where they start you at the very beginning. Is they
sure.
want you to go sell to all your friends and family.
That's why I didn't take that path. I mean, I could have gone to a Northwestern Mutual, Morgan Stanley, like one of those big places. I could have gone insurance. I don't do that. I mean, I'm a fee only fiduciary advisor, so I really get to run my own ship. But yeah, I mean, selling to friends and family is tough. I hear that a lot, that especially for advisors or for financial planners like myself. They might, like Alex says, and I think Alex Hormozy says it well. He's like, first off, you probably suck in the beginning. Second of all, like that's okay, and you need practice. So like, give it away for free for a while, and then in exchange for feedback and testimonials. And I think that's a great model. But yeah, it's hard to sell to friends and family, and it's hard, especially when you're not just selling a product. You're selling a very relationship-based service that's kind of ongoing. And so, yeah, it's tough. So that was disheartening. My second move was, I guess this was probably my second. Let me think for a second. Yeah. So I started a podcast.
Okay. Did you have a website before any of that?
I did. So, I mean, I built a website. I guess that was really my first thing. Was I built a website, and then I did this nice social media announcement so people could go and actually see. The website was my best attempt to make a website, and I think it looked good. It was a Squarespace build. I think, the content was pretty nice, but there was no direction to it. There was no clear, I mean, like I was missing some really important elements, like, a hook, any sort of like compelling lead magnet, any free giveaway. It was just very informational, and hey, here's me and here's what I do, and here you can book a call. And I included my pricing and stuff right on the page, but it was, there wasn't much compelling about it. Man, I've dabbled in short form video. That was interesting. Podcasting. When you don't flex the muscle of content creation, of putting yourself out there, of actually creating something, putting it out in the world and saying, I hope this is helpful. And if you want more, you can contact me. And if you want to work with me, here I am. It's a really atrophied muscle. I don't think anybody's born with it. And so it took a while to just get in the like, okay, yeah, I can do this kind of headspace, and then feel a confidence to put some stuff out there. So I did a bunch of short form videos at the beginning of this year to just, put my personality out there, put good information out there, good financial planning advice for small business owners, tax saving tips, investment, strategies, cash management goals, like just all kinds of stuff, just free, given away, and hoping that it's helpful enough for people that they can self-implement or hire, me if they want me to do it for them.
So you're giving value by education, which is awesome. It's our entire principle for how we've built Simply Be Found. It's what I've used for years. I mean, I can reverse back when I started my first digital agency for being able to do websites and all that. It was teaching Facebook. In 2008, I'd bring people into the local library. I wasn't allowed to sell them there, so I was like, I'll educate them. I should have recorded all those instead of YouTube videos and started getting that whole thing going. I didn't do it. I was terrified to put myself inside on the screen and get myself in video. I had a horrible time getting myself there. And then once I did it, I mean, hell, I've had over 2,000 videos on YouTube now. But that's a great way of being able to do that. But you say that there's something possibly missing. I think a lot of business owners, if I'm hearing you right, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I think a lot of business owners are doing all these actions.
Right.
They're getting some action maybe from it, but they know that they could be doing better than what they're doing.
Well, Rob, I mean, you just described a tree. Everybody knows the parts of a tree.
Yep.
But when you describe a business,
we came up with that less than 60 days ago. That was the best way we were able to describe it.
Yeah, I love it. It's gold. But like when you describe a business, I mean, Alex, again, go back to Hormozy. I mean, he outlines 8 pieces of a business. I think even the 8 pieces, like they're all important, but I'd say probably most small businesses have maybe 5. But even still, like, I don't know if the average person could rattle off the key areas of the business, and under sales, you've got your tree analogy. So like my point is, like, I do think there's something missing in my process, and I'm not even sure, like, I don't know what I don't know. And I think a lot of business owners fall into that category of like, I 100%. Need something. I don't know what I need, but it feels like something's missing here because it's not executing like I thought it would. Right. So like, do I need a supplement? Do I need like some kind of workout routine? Do I need like some special new like smoothie? I'm analogizing this to like a personal diet, but the point is, like, in a business, you just start throwing ideas at, spaghetti at the wall, right? And seeing kind of what sticks and what works. And it's a really frustrating process.
So here's what my first thought is. Just from, I haven't looked at your website. I haven't done any of the data analysis that I can do to be able to dive into all of that. But if I was to guess, and this is where I would say probably 92% of small businesses sit, they don't necessarily have a conversion problem. They have a traffic problem. They're not pushing enough traffic to their website, to them, to be able to do it. They're relying on other sources to do it. So I see businesses go buy ads for this, and then it ends up costing them a ton, or those ads stop working and they can't drive. That's just costing too much, and it's putting a strain on their business from a finance side. I see people who are just spending time in areas that they shouldn't spend time in, or that they're not making the most of the time that's there. So I call it the ADHD brain of small business owners. We start focusing on something. For example, we'll get somebody inside of the listings engine and they'll start wanting to make changes to their listings engine every day. And I have to send them an email and go, that's why it's not working, because you're messing with it. You got to let it sit and you got to let the data come back, so then we can help you analyze it. So you're making changes that are good for your business.
That's
and
so
not just
funny
doing it
because
for doing it for the sake of it.
Well, yeah, it's like basic investment advice.
Yep.
You know,
So it's no different
Stop
than me
messing with
logging
it,
into my E-Trade account right now
yeah,
and making. If I was going to go through and sell everything, I'd lose my ass. But it's long-term plays. It's no
yeah.
different. But if I was to guess, you have a traffic problem, and you're doing podcasts, you're joining podcasts like you are with us, and I think our podcast is a little different for the huddle, for how we kind of break things down and have a natural conversation. Because I got tired of going and doing podcasts where there was no value, and I was just hoping to get into their network and get results. So as I look at the new version of how the internet works, how AI works, how all this stuff came together, it's only one part of the puzzle. You're showing up to the podcast, but what are you doing with that podcast to be able to drive traffic to it, to be able to get you results out of it? Or are you relying just on the host of that podcast to put it out there and hoping to get in front of their network?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, posting and sharing about the show, but outside of just posting on social media, I'm not sure. I don't know what I'm not doing.
So, for one, you have to take your own destiny in your own hands, in my opinion. You have to be able to know what that destiny is. So when you get this huddle from us, you're going to get different shorts. You're going to get different ideas for content. Plus, we'll tag you and put you out there. So I wanted to design our huddle to be a little bit different than what most huddles are, or most podcasts are, to where you have access to the raw materials to then post on your own. So then it's organic reach for you and for your channel, not just a reshare or not pointing to somebody else's piece. As much as I love to have guests like you on and have all of that, you have to be able to take that same information like we do and put it out to your own. It helps me, helps you. So that's one way of doing it. So when you look at video from any aspect, you have content that's created from that video. You have then content that can be able to be used. Well, it's a matter of how you repurpose that data to be able to get in front of more and drive traffic for you. So when you look at it, you have this podcast that you're on right this second. That's a video. You have your points. You talk about your business and have those different pieces in there. The next thing you could do with that is you can create a blog on your website. Take your points, take your quotes, create that blog for your site. You can then take that, use it for social media. You can link back to it, not link back to it. Use some of the video that we share with you to be able to put inside of there and fill in those gaps. If it's just a video with just you, you have even more to be able to create that knowledge base. And now you're creating that whole piece of, here's the top 10 mistakes that you're doing inside of your business today that hurting you on the finance side, or whatever that might be. But now you have that content and you can repurpose it and use it in multiple spots. You have the long form, you have the short form. It can then be used inside of social media. It can be used on your website, and it's utilizing it to its full maximum potential. And that is part of that long-term play of how your entire tree is going to come together, because everything talks to one another. So you might have that root base down in the bottom that's all your listings, but yet you have that piece that kind of connects. It's kind of like that, the connection between, your gut and your brain and how your whole body works. Everything is connected in some way. Same thing in a living tree or inside of that ecosystem. You might have Google Business Profile, but up here inside of social media, you also have your Google Business Profile, because you should be posting out to updates in your Google Business Profile at least 2 to 3 times a week. Most people forget that inside of business because they don't even know it exists.
Yeah.
So the problem with most small business owners is it's not that they don't know. They're either afraid. It goes with finance as well. So when you're working with a business owner, they don't know what they don't know, and they're terrified to make a mistake, because if they make a mistake, it could hurt them. Do you agree?
Yeah. It's funny because, like you said, I mean, business owners, entrepreneurs, like some of the most risk comfortable people in the world, and yet at the same time, some of the most scared. And I mean, to your point, like, I don't know what I don't know, and it could hurt me, so I'm not going to do anything.
So you asked me the question of what the 2 top things are that someone could fail at inside of business.
Sure.
Based on everything I just said and you just said, they're fearful of what decisions they're going to make on a finance side, and they don't have enough sales coming in, and it's hurting them and killing their business because of money-wise, and how their whole entire finance piece might be set up. They don't have it set up where they can go borrow money and do all the things they can do in the finance world. And then they have a sales and they have a traffic problem, which those 2 things connect as well. Because if you don't have enough traffic, you don't have enough eyeballs on your business, you are going to fail, because you have to have those, especially if you don't have a storefront.
Yeah, and I think that, well, there's a lot there. Yeah. So I'm curious, getting more eyeballs, getting more traffic. Where do you start with business owners for that? I mean, maybe it's not a good, let me rephrase that, because I think you've explained where to start. But like, now that and let me pause even before I get to that question, because content atomization, like you were just describing. Sorry, I've got like 5 thoughts going on, but atomizing your content to then repurpose to a blog and short form and post it here and Google updates. That is awesome. And it takes so much freaking time.
What if I told you could do it less than an hour?
I would say you could do it in less than an hour, but the average person listening, I don't think I disagree.
So this is when I wish Dean was on, because I taught him and his business how to be able to do it in less than an hour. So so this is what that looks like.
An hour a day, a week, a month.
An hour for one video. About an hour a week would help and save most businesses.
All right, I'd be curious.
And the better you get at it, the better you are. And it doesn't just include our product is part of that whole piece. So we have the listings engine, and the listings engine will get you out on 1,000 different networks. That's your root base. Once you set that information in there, you're done. We offer coaching for our side, and this is the other stuff of how to make everything else work and go. Yes, we offer websites. Yes, we offer all the digital marketing. We'll be your agency. We can take over whatever it is that your business doesn't want to touch. We could take over a lot of that stuff as far as the marketing side. Some things I'll say it's better for you to do it. So content is one of those things. And it takes less than an hour to be able to take something and be able to grow it. So how you do that, if I was you, Nick, I would record a video about, the XYZ, or join a podcast. You could do whatever video you're going to have inside of there. And it goes through and it talks about how you could help them inside of the business world. You then load that video. Don't worry about editing that video. Most people are looking for raw and uncut and real content now. So if you could break through that noise, just make sure you have the basics in there. So you can record that using StreamYard. You could use Descript. You could use Loom. There's a lot of different software that you can record the video on. You could even record it directly inside of YouTube if you are doing short form content. Or you record on your phone and then upload it into YouTube. Doesn't even cost anything. So you have that YouTube channel. That YouTube video is then going to give you a transcript. You take that, you put so this is where, AI command and prompts engineering comes in play. you put the right prompt in there. So you tell it to take that, be in your tune. You have your whole entire AI trained to be able to do you. You take that transcript, put it in. Now you have a blog and you have your social media posts. You go to those networks, you schedule it out, and then you use a piece of software called Opius, or there's another one out there, and I think it's called Taha. One sec. Let me go to my other screen so I don't tell everybody wrong. It's Taha. So TAGA.ai. And that will take your long form, or you can use Opius. We use both, and it'll create all your shorts from that. So just go through, make sure the short sounds good. Now you have content to post for your shorts. Now you have a blog. You have all of your shorts. You have your long form content. And now what I would do, if in your case, Nick, for being a financial guy, I would then take that and I would email it out as a cold email or to your email contact list.
Interesting.
So your longest point of time is going to be making sure that you fact check it. But once you get that process down, it doesn't take much time.
Well, it's funny because I have a similar process.
Okay.
So currently my process looks like taking a video, I bring it into Descript. I'll add my captions, use the AI tools to, shorten word gaps and remove fillers and uhs and ums and stuff like that.
So I would leave those in.
Really? Okay. Sometimes, yeah. Well, so this is what I do for shorts. I should clarify. And I guess for true shorts, I don't have any ums because I've scripted them already. I mean, I do a lot of batch record, or I've done batch recording. I shouldn't say a lot because anyway, but yeah, I've done batch recording now a couple of times for my shorts. So I'll do 10 to 20 at a time. And so I'll take those, bring them into Descript, add my captions, touch up the sound if I need to, and then break them into the shorts, export them and post them. And then I use the transcripts from the script that I wrote already, and then feed that into a couple different tools I use to then generate really nice platform optimized descriptions. It still takes time though, even with all of those fantastic tools. It still takes time. Now, maybe it doesn't take hours and hours and hours. Certainly doesn't take nearly as long as it would if I was doing it all manually. But even with the AI tools,
it's gotten a lot faster.
It's gotten a lot faster.
Do you know where a lot of businesses really kind of struggle though for that content and where it takes the most time?
Oh, creating it, I would say.
I would say creation if you're doing your process right, but a lot of it is critiquing themselves and being too hard on themselves and wanting absolutely everything to be perfect, and it doesn't.
Yeah. Oh man, I have so many advisor friends that struggle with that because there are a lot of advisors on this on platforms right now doing stuff like this, right? I mean, getting out there and and then there's this kind of gap of like typically, I don't want to be careful here, but like it can happen where the loudest voices in the space are not necessarily the most the highest level of expertise in the space, right? So you have that knowledge gap where the smart people that really know what they're talking about and have something really helpful to say probably aren't comfortable in front of a camera, probably aren't going to put themselves out there in short form or long form video. And then the other people that might not really be the best knowledge experts. And so there's this gap of like, well, if I try to act like them, I might, lose credibility as the expert. But really, that's just self-critiquing. And I have several advisor friends that should be producing content, but don't because they're just, I don't know, man, they're too nervous. They're too hard on themselves. They're too like, well, it needs to, I don't know what to say yet. It's like, that was why I started my podcast was I needed to flex that muscle of, I need to just put myself out there in a way and make myself create something, put it out to the world and say, hey, this is what I have to offer. I hope you like it.
So I was talking with a contractor just the other day, and he was like, I'm terrified to get in front of video. I have no video content. There's nothing I could talk about. And I said, you have a ton of content. You have a ton of content.
Contractor?
Yeah, I was like, you have a ton of content. I said, so what I want you to do is I want you to get in your car. I said, we're going to focus just on shorts. I said, because I think you could do it on shorts and do a very well optimization to be able to have it done. You get done bidding a project. You're taking notes for yourself, right? He goes, well, I talked to my phone and I have it translate and I send an email to my wife and then she writes up the quote from there. I said, perfect. Let's take that to the next level. Instead of talking to your phone, turn on record on your phone and record yourself inside of your truck talking about the project, everything you saw, what you could do, what your recommendations would be, all your same notes, and record a short video, hit upload. Have her come back and edit it. He goes, I can do that. I said, yeah, you can do that. That's great content. Then post a short blog about your little short. He's seen, I think when I talked to him the other day, I think he said he saw about a 12x on that after doing it for a month. He's getting more leads, more projects, and he also took it to the next level. He sends that same video to the person who he did the quote on to be able to have them go over what he saw inside of the project and his notes inside of there. He started putting it part of his sales process. And so it gave all that. So he doesn't mention the address, doesn't mention the person or any of that inside of the video. So it's not cut like he's talking to them, but it's cut for his notes that he's putting through. So then he has something to be able to visually come back through. If he wins the quote, he comes back and then he tags that same video and says, here's where we started. Here's the finished project. Here's the bathroom remodel we did or the basement remodel or whatever it might be. Yeah, well, that was great. All content inside of that. I mean, you could take that and use it in the finance world and be like, I just got this question. Here's this problem. Here's what this is. And that's where going and not having it be to where you're worrying about your ums and how you present it on the camera. Nobody cares. Because you're going to look different than the person who goes and gets an AI to be able to act like them or do them. They can't make mistakes and correct it. So back when I used to teach sales and bring sales groups together and train them on how to be able to do it, a lot of it was body language. It was going through and having pauses inside of how they were talking, let them talk, do all those things. In most finance areas, you've seen some kind of training of that aspect. That's what we see as being real. So have you ever heard of the person, Oren Klaff? Before? Do you know who that is? Nick, I think you might be frozen.
Yeah.
Hey,
back. There we go.
All right. Yeah, did you hear my question?
Just the last 10 seconds were gone. So say that again.
Okay. Do you know who Oren Klaff is?
No.
Okay. So Oren Klaff, he does a lot of stuff for, prospecting and being able to go in and do big business deals and all this stuff. I recommend reading or listening to Pitch Anything from Oren Klaff. Well, he looks at everything as Caveman and for how he pitches everything out. And it falls into the 3 F's is what he calls it. Either you're going to fight it when you run into something as a caveman, you're going to fight it. You're going to, make love with it. There's the other word for that inside of there. I just won't say it right now. Or you're going to feed on it and have it in there. Those are your 3 F's that he talks about. And inside of the world, we're looking for that. We're trying to determine if we want to be able to do business on there. We have to make sure we're telling our story right on our website. All those pieces come into play because it goes back to that caveman part of our brain of how we do survival. Well, one of those ways of being able to build trust is being able to get to know somebody. So if you remove off all the mistakes that they made or the ums or the different pieces that might have went wrong, that might be the one thing that would end up making it to where you actually conveyed to that one person that you're a real person and made that connection at. So I disagree with going through and doing over editing. That's why I did the huddle as being raw and uncut, is because of that personality piece. You have to be able to connect. And sometimes it's those mistakes that make us us. And I think you might have froze again. Nick, you back with us? We'll give him just a minute here. And see, this is part of that raw and unedited. Sometimes your internet just goes to shit. Hey, you're back. I can see your eyes moving.
There we go. I don't know if it's you or me, but the internet's struggling right now.
Looks
It's
according to
probably
StreamYard, it's going to be on your side. I've
yeah,
got right now a 1.8 by 1.6 gig connection both ways.
nice. I don't, so I'm struggling with my internet connection at the moment.
I used to have Comcast and used to have a 40 meg upload for a really long time, and it killed me. I've been able to do a lot more with having the thing, and I've gotten really spoiled. So then I go over to Dean's place of business, and he doesn't have the same internet provider over there even available. And I'm like, what the hell is this? This is horrible.
It's
How
so
do you
funny,
work
man.
with this?
Well, and nowadays too, when so many apps and programs on your device or devices are constantly communicating with the internet, it's crazy how much the internet speed will affect your just regular productivity, your
Oh,
apps
exactly.
loading
I
and
mean, all my
pulling in
cameras,
data and
everything
like
are all connected. If the kids
yeah,
are home, there's all those pieces. But I mean, did you hear my whole piece about the caveman?
I did. Yep.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah,
so
and I
there's that
responded.
whole piece. There's that whole piece, and being real is everything.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
you
and
have to. I think you have to use that inside of your finance world as well. Is the fact that it's real. You're going to make some finance mistakes that are going to hurt you.
one of my favorite stories is actually there's a brilliant finance guy that I love to follow. He tells a story of how he bought a house he couldn't afford right before the crash and lost it. And he was a New York Times columnist at the time, and he wrote an article saying, yeah, I'm a CFP and I lost my house because I made a really stupid financial decision. And it just the vulnerability of saying, like, I don't have this figured out. I'm not perfect. Look at what I just did. Look at what it cost my family. This is why I got into this space, because I want to help people avoid this kind of thing. And I just did it. What does that tell you about human psychology and how easy it is to fall into all of the behavioral biases that make personal finance 90% personal and 10% finance.
There's
So it's
a lot of businesses that struggle making payroll, especially right now with where economics are. There's a lot of places that they could be able to help themselves. And I really think coming from both sides of the fence and both sides of the world for finance and marketing, they both play a very big hand-in-hand role with each other, more than what people even realize, because you have to be able to know what you're going to do when everything falls off. So I was talking with someone yesterday that was at the barber shop that owns a major construction company in our local area. I've known him for years. He's part of, the community and all that different stuff. But I mean, he was talking about in 2008, he was almost struggling to be able to make payroll. And sometimes it's the universe that's going to come in and be able to help you more than you realize what's going to happen. He had somebody, he was going to tumble his whole company over. The dominoes were finally going to fall down. And someone happened to walk in and go, a long time ago, I did some work. I stepped away. I wasn't able to pay it then, but I can pay it now for whatever reason. And he went ahead and
wow.
paid it. And it made it to where he had enough payroll for 6 months. And that allowed him to be able to stay alive. So, I mean, inside of the world of business, you go through those ups, you go through those downs, and there's corrections on everything that happens. There's corrections inside of the stock market. The entire universe depends on those corrections and balances. It's happened all the way back. I mean, you can go back to biblical times and see that. There's always been corrections and changes along the way. Some would say that was, the Great Flood created all that. There's all those pieces that come into that whole mix, but that's all nothing but a correction and a balance piece. You're fixing it. I mean, we had the .com crash in 2000. You had the 2008 crash. You had COVID. I was predicting that we were going to be in a crash during COVID. We started Simply Be Found to be able to target businesses that weren't going to be able to afford their marketing and needed that jump start to be able to help them. So I'm excited that we're kind of inside of an economic crash in a way. For one, we need the correction. We need everything to kind of balance back out. But I mean, our whole business model was designed on that exact basis. And when COVID happened, I was like, well, crap, I don't know what to do now. Man, it's not going to crash out. So we're not going to see the influx so that we were predicting that was going to end up happening. So it made us change our model in some aspects, but you have to know what to do inside of those businesses. And you don't learn those things without failing a few times.
Yeah, no kidding.
And that's why, you know, I said at the very beginning of the podcast was the fact that it's easy to make the money, but keeping the money is a whole nother ballgame.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the Profit First book, I mean, that's one of the core messages is profits aren't what you make, it's what you keep. And my goal is to alleviate entrepreneurial poverty, with my business through simple, common sense financial strategies and ways to manage your money in a way that aligns with your values and all that. So, I mean, so that's really what you've done too with Simply Be Found, leveraging 3 decades of practice and trial and error and, bringing that to the market for helping small business owners to be found. And when they're found, a lot of problems go away, right?
They do. Now,
Yeah.
what are 5 major tips you would have for a business owner when it comes to finance? What are the top 5 things you see that are mistakes?
Ooh, okay. Well, the first one we talked about already was mingling business and personal. The second I would say is not having a spending plan. Really, that's a budget. I just don't like to use that word because people's blood pressure always goes up when you say that. But if you don't have a budget, a spending priority list is just saying like, okay, what are we going to buy first? New shoes or rent? Like, well, rent's more important than buying new shoes. Okay, what new shoes are important? Probably more important than movie tickets. But like organizing those things on a list to say this is the most important thing, then this is second, or these are the top 5 or 10. Just having a list of when I get my paycheck or when my business gets paid by our customers, here's where the money's going to go. So having that priority and then what you do with leftover money is really important. Number 3, I'd say, is missing obvious tax breaks through things like I'm a big proponent of hiring your kids. You can hire. There's an IRS like a case or like what do they call this, like special ruling. Somebody got away with
Yep.
not got away with, but like got permission for hiring like all the way down to like their 7-year or 8-year-old. So you can hire your kids at a very young age to come in with a real job description, a real hourly wage, doing a real job for you. Treat them like a young employee. Treat them like you would an intern. Coach them, train them, have performance reviews with them. When you pay them, it's deductible to you. If they're filing single, you can pay them up to the single standard deduction where it's tax-free to them. And then they can throw that into a Roth IRA where it will never be taxed. It's this beautiful triple tax benefit. So I highly recommend that. Other tax opportunities like a SEP IRA or a simple or a 401k, a solo 401k. Even just maxing out IRAs. Like there's so many ways to just defer taxes until later on, potentially saving in taxes if you'll be in a lower bracket down the road that you just don't really think about or don't know about, or as a business owner you might think is more complicated to set up than it's worth. It's usually not. So that's probably number 3, is just missing out on good tax strategies as a business owner. Number 4, I'd say, is spending money because you have it. Kind of goes back to number 2, but when you're in the habit of spending money as a business owner, it's really easy to just think you can solve a problem by throwing money at it and act like, well, the money is always going to be coming in, so I'll just throw money at this problem. Seldom is that the best first choice.
In marketing, I call that ads, because you're throwing money out the door. But,
yeah. Great point, right? There's this great principle called Parkinson's law, where demand will expand to meet supply. And that's the economic definition. But in practical terms, it's that if you give yourself a budget of $1,000 to do a small home project, you'll find a way to do it within the budget. If you eat with a smaller plate, you will eat less and you'll lose weight. My favorite is that the tube of toothpaste, right? When you get a new tube of toothpaste, you will squeeze out way more toothpaste than you will when there's a tiny little amount that you're wrenching out with your thumbs at the very end and like using the bristles to dig it out of the inside of the tube. Yeah, that behavior is Parkinson's law manifested. So in your business, if you have lots of money sitting in your account or sitting on your P&L, you'll find a way to spend it because it's there. So get it out as quickly as possible, pay yourself, put it in your I'm a fan of the profit first system, your no temptation profit account. So it's out of reach. Okay. So spending money because you have it. And then number 5 would probably be over concentrating risk in your own business. and thinking that if you just always put money back into your own business, you'll get it back. Shockingly, that's not always the case, especially if you're an asset heavy business. Um, Buying more equipment to boost your sales, to fund more equipment to boost your sales and increase your productivity is a great way to land with a whole bunch of depreciated salvage value assets at the end of the life cycle of your business without a lot to show for it and with very little to offer a new owner coming in the door. Now, certainly there are exceptions to that. There are
There's
a load of
exceptions.
wonderful exceptions to that. And I wish you all the success in that. But for a lot of average people, just running a business and trying to grow it and put money back in, it may or may not work out. So I highly recommend consulting with an expert to strategize about de-risking your life by saving outside of your business. This is also to help you avoid, and by the way, that's finance jargon. All I'm saying is like, pull money out and throw it in a savings account. That's the bottom line. And then get it invested in something else that you don't own that will grow without you having to watch it and manage it. But this is to get you out of what I call like the owner trap, where you've grown your business to a few $1 million in sales. You're making good profits. You're earning a good income, and your lifestyle has inflated to that point. And now, when you sell your business, so let's say you're making 500 on 5 million in sales. Well, to sell it, let's say you sell it for 4x EBITDA would be 2.5 million. Well, the safe withdrawal rate on 2.5 million is what, 100,000? Yeah, $100,000 a year. So you're making 500. Now you're drawing 100. But what in the world do you do with that $400,000 income gap that you're now living in? Maybe you sell it for 3 or 4 or 5 million. That's still not going to get you to a $500,000 a year income at a safe portfolio style withdrawal rate. So what do? Well, put it in real estate or find some other way to increase your income, because you didn't plan for this. You didn't put in place, just a simple savings habit 20 years ago to just start setting aside 10 to 15% of your pay. And it doesn't have to get that much more complicated than that, but that's a way to not be so tied to the success or failure of your business. It's just a way to de-risk your life, help you sleep better, take care of your family, all that.
Well, it's part of the leaky bucket syndrome, and finance fits into that. So, have you ever heard of the leaky bucket?
No, tell me.
All right, so leaky bucket. So you have this bucket. You've got customers that are coming into your business up here, and you're always going to have some kind of turn that's happening inside of there. So when you look at it, so you talk about going and buying more equipment and buying all this different stuff, it falls into there. Do you want to add more customers? Is it going to cause the leak of how many customers are leaving going to be the same? Are you going to have to hire more employees? Is your overhead going to be higher? Is all this going to happen? And are you going to make more profits? So inside of the world of marketing, we talk about you always have to bring new customers in because you're always losing customers. But you also have the balance that's in between on that bucket. Just because you add a piece of equipment doesn't mean that you're going to make more profits at the end of the day. It's no different than if you have to hire more people because you are doing more business, maybe you should charge more in your business versus hiring more. It reduces how many people you have to have, because I've seen to where you bring less people in, but you find the right people that come in from your marketing, and you have the right staff in there versus having this huge company and making this little bit, but charging more, bringing more profit in will end up making, and less people inside of the business or less equipment, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen profits go up because of that too. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
The same thing inside of what you have?
I mean, in a sense, I mean, that's a different, that's not exactly what I was saying with, de-risking your personal portfolio just because you're so concentrated in your business. But absolutely, like, pricing is the whole pricing conversation and how much you need to service the sales, the complexity of your business growing. That's something I talk about a lot in my content, because it's something I've seen, I've lived, I see in client situations right now. It's a very real problem, and I don't have all the answers, but at least if I can help brainstorm with you and throw out some other options that maybe you haven't considered, or maybe, might help you think through the scenario that you're walking through, then that's my goal.
Perfect. What are you seeing right now and what's your prediction with what's happening right now in our economic state?
Oh man, I don't usually.
I was debating going down that question, but I'm gonna go down that question because I think there's a lot of, especially your small businesses that have never seen the market, never seen any of that stuff. They're scared about it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a settled confidence that is pretty unshakable when it comes to the future and life generally, but that's thanks to, my relationship with Jesus Christ and, the truths that are so beautifully explained in scripture. So fundamentally, my confidence is in the Lord more than in an economy or a president or anything like that. But that's not exactly an answer to your question. I mean, the fear is real and it makes sense. It's rational. And I think that embracing that is probably the first step. If you're owning a business and you are legitimately afraid of the economic outlook, there's probably good reason for that. So give room to that. You don't have to shut that feeling down, or stuff it. Like give room to it. Uh, but in the words of many people, Carl Richards, a lot of other smart people, don't let it drive the bus. Don't let the fear of what may or may not happen in a month or a year cause you to make certain decisions now that could cost you opportunity as the next month or year unfold. So what I mean by that is, I don't do economic predictions. I don't try to live by them. There's lots of people, brilliant, smart people that predicted, uh, economic downturns or booms that did not happen. I don't have the specifics on this, but you don't
Some
have to
got
look hard
lucky
to
and
find
bet
it.
against the housing market. It's all went both ways.
Yeah, and the yeah, I mean, my point is, when it comes to investing, when it comes to business, um, I'm a long-term passive investment kind of guy. I think that there are certain hallmarks of businesses that make them worth investing in, and that those hallmarks are not subject to economic conditions. Things like, delivering good customer service and making a product or service that really, is good for the common good of humanity. So like, yeah, I don't know. That's not really an answer to your question, but it's not something I usually weigh in on. I mean, I don't have a strong opinion on, my economic forecast. I mean, the tariffs are crazy right now. The whole market is kind of wondering what's going to happen. The looming trade war and deficit and all. I mean, there's lots of reasons to be depressed. So I don't want to focus on those. I'd rather say, like, there's lots of people that have problems to solve and are willing to pay someone to come and help them do it. And
Well,
that's
see,
kind of what I try to.
there's always problems to solve. And right now,
Sure.
if you're feeling that you are at that point of to where you're worried about it and you don't have your backups, you're not sure what to do and where to turn. That's when you go and you hire the finance person. It's why you go and hire the marketing person that is looking at it in a different way, or you do the research to do it yourself. And you start to follow that because it's part of that, that riding a bike's piece of, analogy to where when you fail or when you're starting to get fail or it gets rough and it gets there. I mean, I've had bank accounts that were at zero and all that different stuff. So it's all in how you pivot. It's all in how you look at it. And it's making sure that you're not doing a business that that you don't need to take behind the, barn and take it out. It's one of those things to where you have to make sure you're headed the right direction. So it takes putting those right places in sometimes to make
Yeah.
sure you're headed the right way. And it's
Yeah. I mean,
looking at it
that's,
from it's looking at the forest from a different set of eyes. And
yeah.
I think that's where finance and marketing really kind of go hand in hand.
Yep. I totally agree.
And what is your ideal client, Nick? If someone is listening to this, what stage are they in, and what does your ideal client look like?
In starting and growing a business, hopefully, there will come a point, or there has come a point, when you've made money and you don't know what to do with it. When you're paying taxes that exceed your annual income for the first several years of being in business. Whether you've come into money, sold a business, think about selling a business someday. Um, those are the people that I want to help and the people that I want to serve, because navigating the road of building a business is hard enough. Exiting a business, or living off of the lifestyle your business provides and planning for the future, whether that's a generational transfer or whatever, that's a whole different world, a whole different skill set, and one that I've gotten to walk a couple times. So that's my service. That's what I do. That's what I love
All
to do and
right.
help people solve.
And if anybody's interested in coming in and learning more about you, your podcast, your business, and all that different stuff of everything you offer, where are they going to find you at, Nick?
Yeah, man. So like you said, the trunk of the tree, everything I do goes through my website, openhandedwealth.com/resources. I've got, videos, podcasts, blogs, things I've shows I've guested on, et cetera, there. I've got a couple of free gifts for your listeners as well, Rob. So anybody listening can go to openhandedwealth.com/freebies and check out some free resources there from me to you. I've got a helpful tax savings guide for business owners, a guide to biblically based investing, if any of your listeners are interested. Another guide to creating your very first spending plan, cash flow plan. If you've never made one and you're like, I have no idea where to start with a budget, what do I do? It's a nice little, one pager, just walk through the whole process with you. So, and then,
Awesome.
Calls with me, strategy sessions are free. I love to meet people and hear their stories and see if there's any way that I might be able to help them. So it'd be a pleasure to meet some of your listeners.
Perfect. Well, hopefully someone contacts you on that, and hopefully everything's there. But thank you so much for being a guest. I really appreciate it today. It was great having a conversation.
Rob, it was my pleasure. Truly. Thanks so much for having me, man.
Thank you.